All right, guys, how many in your party? Two. Come on in. You guys are good. How are you?
Cheers. Oh.
Anybody who goes to see a small, intimate show with a musician they love comes away loving that artist even more. You feel like you know them in a way and you want to connect with them, and that's the way it is with any art, whether it's writing or sculpture or films or any type of artistic creation like that. The people want to emotionally, personally connect with the person creating the art.
50, 60, 70 years ago, there was no recorded medium of any real quality. In order to hear music, it was a live event. When we had a recorded medium, which means we could record it and distribute it and now listen to it in a non-live situation, we kind of caused a problem. We have a solution and a problem at the same time.
The ability for a listener to actually get into the same room with the musicians is huge, and there is a smaller version of that that comes from listening to their records if you view listening to records in that way and you turn it into an experience.
Stay, go, whatever I do, I just can't get it right. I just can't get it right.
When you go play a show and you've got maybe there's 10 people there and you're just starting out and there's really only 10 human beings at your show. You know, if you can reach one person in that room, that's the goal.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you know where to find me. Close your eyes, here I am. Just the way you remember me. The way it was, the way it all began. Is it all lost? Is it all gone? Tell me, baby, where we went wrong.
Well, the one thing I hope that people hear when they hear my music is realness. And I think like what's important to me now is just forgetting about that and going back to what I hear when I listen to music.
Is it my imagination? Is it
When you go into the studio and you've got like all your brand new songs that you want to record to tape, and you come in and you're getting the energy from the person you're working with, you're getting the energy of like all the gear and how many people have used like a board or where you got your guitar from. So you're getting all of that, and it's such a hippie thing, but if energy affects everything, then of course you're getting that from all different angles of everything that you're working with.
when I see you again? In this dream I keep waking up in.
You want to get one more? Just so we have it?
Yeah, let's do it.
Why not?
Hi, I'm Kaki King. We are in Brooklyn, New York, in a theater called Standard Toycraft. So, this guitar is called a Griffin, and it was made by a man in Woodstock, New York named Joe Veillette. And the fact is that Joe and I have a relationship through the instrument. Like, he has the planning and the engineering and the ingenuity to build something like this. You know, the magic of what's happening, especially in an acoustic guitar, is actually all happening underneath this top. So there's a bracing pattern that's unique to every manufacturer. And Joe's is, well, unique to him. When I started to play these guitars, I realized they were writing songs almost on their own. Like, I was just going where the guitar was leading me. Anything that I've written on this guitar couldn't have been written on any other instrument, not even in a similar song, but just played in a different tuning or in a different style. I mean, there's a quality to this guitar that is so unique to it, and my job is not to like master it or control it. My job is to just discover what it can do.
When a musician picks up the instrument to play it, they may not understand how the guitar goes together, but you can really feel the influence all of these things have. Musicians attend to these things. They're super sensitive, if even on only a subconscious level. This shop is my life. I've lived in my shop pretty much all my life. This is a manifestation of all the things that I love, that I believe in. People say that a man doesn't need 8 drill presses, but I would like to imply that a man does need 8 drill presses in order to execute one's dreams. There's a lot of mythology imbued into the notion of the guitar about what wood sounds particularly magical, or which what species has more sustain than another. And the bottom line is really that it's the constructional details and the craftsmanship that goes in to the making of the instrument. It has a lot more to do with the final outcome, tonally speaking. I start with the geometry as the point of departure on paper, on a blueprint, and you have to work out everything in advance in that regard. These are hand-stitched rasps from Laugier in France. Each one's a work of art in itself. The first point at which you get a sense of the instrument coming into a kind of a corporal entity is when you bolt the neck onto the body. And that's when you can pick it up. All of a sudden you have something you can balance in your lap. You have something that feels like an instrument. You catch your very first glimpse. You haven't heard it yet, but you get your first notion of what it perhaps will be able to do. One thing I realized about luthiery when I first started studying the discipline was that there is an end to crafting the instrument, but you're essentially sending it off on a journey and pass perhaps from one person to another and take on a life of its own. That's what we strive for as individual craftspeople. That's kind of the goal.
I'm Dave Smith. We're here in my offices in North Beach in San Francisco. I originally got into this because I had a music background and a technology background. I played in bands, I played bass and guitar in bands when I was going to college. But I also got a degree in electrical engineering and computer science from Cal. So when synthesizers first started coming out in the early 70s, I went out and bought one just because it seemed like, well, music, technology, what a perfect combination for me. In 1978, I designed my first actual synthesizer. It's called the Prophet 5, and it was a very well-known synthesizer at the time. It was kind of a breakthrough instrument because it, for the first time, allowed you to play more than one note at a time on a synthesizer, and for the first time, it allowed you to save your sounds where you could just press a button as opposed to having to change in a whole bunch of knobs. What I've realized since then, since I've been designing instruments for 40 years now, is that the interaction of a musician and an instrument, it should be a musical discovery when you hear something come out of an instrument that you weren't expecting, that you hadn't heard before.
Oftentimes, the sounds are the starting point. A lot of what gets us excited and start writing is organically playing with sound. When we started to think about recorded music in a more serious way, which was after we had already kind of established a language of performance, we just started buying synths and expensive synths because we knew they had to challenge us and we had to be confused, and the process of discovery with these instruments has been a huge part of what continues to excite us about making music.
A lot of times, sounds will write the song. You'll hit this. You'll kind of be tweaking. You're like, whoa, there it is, and it just comes out. You'll have to retire that sound because you'll go back, and every time I sit down, I want to play that exact sound. Only plays this one melody. I don't know it's a function of the fact that that was the first thing I played, so I think of it every time, or just like it wants to be heard in that way.
That sounds cool.
Yeah.
Sounds like a string on a pickup.
And you can simplify it, the interface, so like you can do, it's almost like a macro.
Nice.
Yeah, or you can go, and man, look at the this saturation section. You can actually increase the way it allows dynamics through, like transients and stuff. The computer is my instrument. That's my primary instrument. It always has been. Like, technology's the center of my process, and leveraging technology to the end of creativity is definitely something I've always focused on. I started out in computer science, and I've always been kind of technically oriented and always worked with computers. And then, you know, the synths and all the other stuff, you know, they're a big part of it, but the center of it is the computer, and because that's the center of the recording and the editing and all that, and I think that's where a lot of the most interesting part of the process happens. It's the sum of its parts of all these elements, just because I think of my work is not really about the end product that people hear, it's more about designing a process. My ideas of the signal and the may or may not be that great, but if you design the process properly, the thing that comes out the other end will be a compelling piece of work that people can appreciate. Whereas, you know, most people aren't going to appreciate the technical aspects of the process or the tools and instrumentation that went into it. But to me, that's really what they're hearing.
The process and the technology are fused. It's all just a creative process. And as much as I use technology to make my music, I don't feel like the music is about the technology. You know, it's just a tool.
I don't feel like it matters what you use so much as how you use it. You know, I know there are young kids now who are, you know, they'll get 1 million hits on SoundCloud and they're using Fruity Loops. And you'll get kind of traditional technology producers who are like, Fruity Loops is rubbish, you know, you can't use that. It's like, well, they are using that, and it sounds really good. What I do think is good is to challenge your process. Like, whatever your system is, every now and then challenge yourself to do it a whole different way. And then by doing that, challenges your creativity, and it can really inspire some different things to come out.
Being in transit all the time unintentionally has had a very positive impact on the way that we create. For sure for us, but also a lot of other really great artists will tell you that the best thing they ever made, or the most popular thing they ever made, was made really quickly. You know, we're not the type of artists that take off time to go in the studio, so we've had to have a studio set up like this that it works with that lifestyle.
I look at every opportunity for the evolution of technology to serve me, as opposed to seeing technology as this beast that's destroying everything. If you're looking for how it can serve you, you will find things, you will find ways. For me, an artist like myself, the digital revolution has been a beautiful boon. Beautiful.
My instruments are an extension of me. There is definitely a connection with my horns. They're very special, they're very old, they're from the 30s and 40s. They're crafted like no other, and they're made to resonate in this beautiful way. Acoustic instruments respond to one another. If you look at it as a string section, every violin has an F hole. And they're designed that specific way so that the sound of the instrument actually can bounce into the next one and reverberate and bounce into the next one, and then create this whole sound out to you. You know, musicians, we're a special breed of people because not only are we just playing our instruments when we play a song, we're keeping time, we're reading the music, but the most important part is we're listening to each other and we respond to each other.
I always say I didn't find drums. Drums completely found me, and it was love at first sight. I cannot explain to you why. It's just something I felt about the sound of the drums, about the look of the drums, about the role it plays in a band, and the power it has. I don't know. It's hard to explain. But in terms of what I'm chasing, what I'm chasing is the impossible, which is perfection, and to be the best you can every single second that you are on the instrument. The drummer, tone is so important, in this instrument. Every style has its different kind of tuning and tone. The tone is so important for it to make sense with the music that you're playing. Every time I'm in a different musical situation, I'll tune for that specific environment, and I will change the heads, will change the tuning, will change the size of the drums, will change the cymbals, and that is what creates the tone of the instrument. In this instrument particularly, it's very customizable. It's not like a piano, there's always a piano. You cannot change anything on the piano. You can change the way you play it, and that will change the tone. But here, it's not only the way you play it, but the instrument itself, you can customize it. You can have, like here, I have a 5-piece kit, but I could have a 20-piece kit or a 2-piece kit, and I could have 20 cymbals. So it's one of the most customizable instruments, acoustic instruments that there are.
For me, I've spent more time with my saxophone than any person or thing in the world. We have a closer kind of camaraderie than anything else. It's like a tool, but it's like an extension of yourself at the same time. Like to someone who doesn't play an instrument, it's almost like the relationship you have with your body. You're in it every day, you see it every day. Sometimes you love the way you look, sometimes you don't. Your tone, it kind of comes from your whole body, and it's like your voice. But it's like, imagine if you could take your voice and make it exactly what you want it to make it. You can make it as deep as you want, and you can really shape it into how you want to shape it. And so you hear people who have tones that have a lot of qualities, and there's a lot going in there.
The sound that I'm chasing has changed a lot over the years. When I started, I was a rock drummer, and my guys were Ringo Starr, Charlie Watts, and then John Bonham, and Stuart Copeland, and Neil Peart, these great bands. And that's what I wanted to sound like. Then I started playing fusion, and I wanted to sound like these other guys. Then I started playing jazz, and I wanted to sound like these other guys. So that's my idea, to be a hybrid of all the influences I've had throughout my life and have a unique sound. When you have a sound that people can recognize within a couple of bars, I think that's when you have become a true artist.
Your tone is a reflection of your ability to hear yourself. A lot of people don't listen to themselves when they're playing. Their mind is basically focused on which fingers to use, which scales I know work, which exercise work, and that was me when I was younger. After the first show I did with Frank Zappa, I was having breakfast with him, and I was 20 years old, and I said, well, how did I do? And he goes, you're a really good player, but your tone sounds like an electric ham sandwich. And I was like, well, what do you mean? I've got the Marshall, I've got this, and he said, the tone is in your head. And that's all Frank ever had to say, and that was all I needed. There was no explanation.
For me, it's how the music is played by the musician. Even if it's not a musician and it's a keyboard MIDI instrument, it doesn't matter if it's a drum machine. It's all about how it's played and how it comes to me. If it's being played with feeling, with emotion, with intent, and it comes to me in this certain spatial response, I'm gonna love it.
Well, I think the powerful thing about art, the powerful thing about music is we all have our own perspective, our own understanding of it. I have my intent and I create this space. but then you come into it and it becomes your own. So for me, the sharing of the music, the sharing of the recorded music is a huge part of completing the process. Because I'm taking something that's in my imagination, it's come through this creative process, it's manifested into a vibration of sound pressure, sound, and that's synthesizing and come together in your body and your consciousness as this whole new thing. And then you can speak to me or you can speak to other people about how you feel in that. That's what it's all about.
If a person is fortunate enough to be able to find the thing that they really enjoy doing, the thing that feels natural to them, it can turn into something that you can master. But to actually have something new, fresh, unique arise from within you, it creates an opening for an emotional investment in your work.
As a musician, you kind of receive from somewhere else like a seed, like a little small idea. And then depending on what you've been through in life, you turn that into something that's unique to yourself. Then as a listener, depending on your experience, you see something or you hear something in the music that is unique to yourself. So it's kind of like each step of the way, there has to be a clear vision as to where this is going. The instruments that are being played, the musicians that are playing those instruments, and there's like the engineer, what mics did he use? What console was he using? It's all down the line. And then like each person has to have that same passion for detail, especially in a recording.
I think if you're truly passionate about music, like music, not any one aspect of it, but the overall thing of music. For me, I just want to be good at it all. So I would get hired to be the engineer. And before you know it, I'm in the room with the guitar player, working on the guitar parts, working not just on sounds, but, everything above and beyond that. And before you know it, I'm producing the record or whatever. But the reality is, it's like I've got the keys to the kingdom. I'm able to make music for a living. To me, the role is make great music and not have any ego about it, because nobody's going to remember like these little details in Cup of It, but they will when they turn on the radio or open Spotify or watch a commercial or a movie or whatever. When they hear something, it will give them an emotional response. And that is bigger and larger than any of us.
The studio is the creative womb for music. You have to make it feel good. You need to bring out the passion in the artist and the producer and the engineer. Because we talk about that's a great record. Now that's not a reflection on the song. A great record means someone crafted this recording and this performance and made it very pleasing to our ears.
I think it's absolutely about sharing emotion with the person that you're in the studio with. It's about the emotion from the players. It's about the emotion from the engineer. It's about the emotion from the producer. And it's like everyone's emotions captures the essence and the soul of the song at that moment in time.
Creating music is something very intimate. So to do it with somebody else, you really have to get to the same space. And I'm not talking about the four-wall rooms. I'm talking about that room somewhere. You need to get there to actually do something inspired, no?
To me, the studio is a place where you hope you can go and be creative and not worry about it. And we're lucky in this studio where we have a lot of tools and a lot of toys, and we should have all the equipment that we need to make something sound pretty good if the artist has got something for you. Capturing an artist is getting them to a vulnerable spot where they're willing to perform without a care in the world and to perform it with conviction. You're trying to make something out of nothing. It's just an idea someone has, As most musicians, I think it's inherent to perform. You've got an intent there, and as someone that records bands, you're just trying to honestly capture that so that they enjoy listening to it. You never know, every once in a while, people create something and lots of people enjoy listening to it.
you can keep it in the lower register on the for the first turnaround. So so it doesn't go to the upper until the last guy, you know?
I think that the reason that we want to record our songs is because we're storytellers, and like every great storyteller, you want your stories to continue. And like, a good song can be played acoustically with just a guitar and maybe a cajon, but it's all about that song. It's still a good song no matter what's around it. Its core is great.
Without a great song, why build a violin? Without a great composition, why have a piano? If the music doesn't move you, what's the point?
Life without art would be a mistake. Of course, this is what I do, and I live music. Since I was a little kid, this is all I've known, this is all I've wanted to do all my life. So it's such a big part of me, but I know that it's also a huge part of humanity in general, And try to imagine life without music. It would be a mistake. I'm inseparable with the guitar. Even recording, when I'm recording, I need to be playing when I'm singing the song, because I feel like the more passion I put into the playing, it comes through with the singing as well. Strange things have happened before, but oh, this love, give me more. And when an artist finds himself with such a raw talent as being able to create music, I think that's our way to say, like, this is how we're going to like connect with each other, and we're just catalysts. Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I never know where the inspiration is going to come from for me. A lot of times it's when I'm driving. Spent years on the road and years touring. So it's interesting just seeing how my family did it. My dad and even Hank Williams had a famous quote, "If a song can't be written in 10 minutes, it ain't worth writing." He used to always say that. Now some of my favorite songs, the ones that the fans love the most, like Highway or Drinkin' or Waiting on June, those were the 10-minute songs that just came out. And you're like, wait, when can I get that again? And then I may go 3 months without writing anything.
Music is a profound mystery. And as a creative artist, I feel that if I know what I'm doing, I'm probably not doing my job. I like to always be just out of my comfort zone, asking new questions, exploring new territory, trying new things, and occasionally discovering new sounds, new ways of listening.
Music's a weird thing. It's kind of one-sided in many ways. You have an idea and you put it together and you record it or you decide to play it live. It's a conversation with yourself, but then once you actually put it out there and people are responding to it, you're just waiting for the response. And that's the exciting thing about music.
That's the thing about music, is it picks you, and when you love it. And when I love something, then I explore it deeper, and like it becomes a part of my life. As much as all the different formats, and whether it can be like, streaming or vinyl and something you can actually feel, it's like it adds to it, but it's not about that at the end of the day. It's about whether your music can like actually reach people and break through the void, I guess.
There's something
that I was discovering in music. It's when you're kind of like jamming and you create a world. Like there is a moment where you're just kind of playing, but then there's this switch when suddenly there's this new world that you're kind of in. You don't know, like there's no way to verbalize it, but it's just a feeling, and everybody knows that they're in it.
My band Karen and I, we do these crazy nights, and they were just at first just set up as a way to have the band commune together and kind of vibe together, and that's kind of the project. It's just us to fuck around and to kind of learn more about each other as players on stage, and to have a good time with the people that kind of slowly end up following whatever it is that we're doing. The improvisation is really a part of the communication. So the better listener you become as a musician, especially with a group of musicians, the better the music. So yeah, just wanted to have fun and bring back the old Seattle days.
Recording, it's a very cold process in a way. You know, it's not like playing live. You don't have the lights, you don't have, the pretty girl, you don't have the drinks. You're in a studio with, with microphones and headphones, and you have to capture the magic. It's not just capturing, the notes or the sound. You really have to create this kind of like magical event.
Yeah, let me hear it.
And you need to capture it.
Here we go. One of the things with this band that I liked when I first heard them is they're good singers. And so you let them sing it, and you come out here in this big room that sounds really nice. It's acoustically treated, and you have a nice microphone that can capture the entire room. That's the bit. You guys got it? Let's roll it one time. And you have them move around the room, which is a trick another engineer producer friend showed me between every take. And all of a sudden you have this big giant room of people singing. And these guys are all good singers, and you're getting layers upon layers upon layers. And it just starts sounding really, really good.
The recording part of it is very much, you're trying to document something. When you have that magic happening in a room with musicians standing across from each other, and there's molecules going between everyone, sounds vibrating and the air's moving, that's a very special thing. Anybody that's seen, live music in the flesh, and it's been great, it's kind of life-changing.
When it comes to who you record with, I think the studio's a vibe. The producer is kind of a crazy position because he or she can't be self-serving. It's not about them. It's not about the guitar player having 1,000 moments to riff. It's not about anything else except serving a song. It's not about my voice either. It's about what makes this song sound its best.
What are you looking for, Jack?
Actually, what I could use right now is the manual to how to work this thing.
It still comes down to how the artist and the producer and the engineer relate to each other, or sometimes I'm engineering as well.
I'm just deciding whether I want to limit or compress.
The artist doesn't need to know about the technical stuff. You make do with what you have, and you make it work.
We're hardly touching it right now.
The producer's job for me is to facilitate.
See how it sits in the track.
And nurture a song to a place that is best presented to the audience that you imagine you're working for. And an engineer's job is more to realize the vision of a producer or an artist. When you first push up the faders, you start with the things that you know are going to act as an anchor for everything. And then very often what happens is the artist or the producer will come in and will have maybe a slightly different take on the context of one particular element. And that's when then you get back into that micro way of thinking where you're fine-tuning details to meet everybody's vision as to what that's supposed to be.
A guitar is a very intimate thing because if you play a guitar for 40 years and it's never let you down and it makes you happy and you play in front of very large crowds and they're happy, then you have a certain relationship with your guitar, which in turn translates to me. The thing about sound is obviously because I've been exposed to it so much through musicians, through working in a factory for so many years, that I have a unique taste for different sounds. You have a sound in your ear that gives you this little fluffy feeling, you know, I don't know how to say it, but you know what I mean, right? I mean, you turn an album on and right away you don't like it. But then I'll listen to some music and it's like, oh my God, this is just incredible. To make musical instruments, it's like everything else, no matter what you make, you have to have the right ingredients. I don't make thousands and thousands and thousands of guitars, so I want to pick the best wood I possibly can. All the wood that you see in this room, I hand-pick myself. So I travel 4, sometimes even as much as 5 months a year, going to look at spruce, going to look at other kind of rosewood and many woods, but I have to inspect it. If I don't inspect it, it's too risky, because finally at the end, you're going to make something that you want to last for 125, 150 years. If you don't pick the right wood, this is not going to happen. Also the fact that certain woods have different tonal characteristics, that you have to know which wood to use, right? You can't just make guitars out of anything.
So right now I need to audition a few acoustic, what's the matter?
Nothing.
I have to audition a few acoustic guitars. Is this working? Every sound that I use is one that I try to make an individual character to suit the personality, the lyric, the tempo, the temperament, and the character of the song.
Both of these are about the same body shape, I think, actually, mini jumbos. This one probably sounds better.
Yeah.
It's higher end.
Yeah. Okay.
Go with this one.
For me, the air that surrounds the instrument is vibrating. That the vibration of that air, that's organic, and then I look to find the best microphone that can capture that. And that organic sound is something that that we somewhere in our primitive selves understand and respond to. Play again? No, you really moved it. You really moved it. This is an adventure. You probably saw how many times I changed microphone, running back and forth to move the microphone an inch or 2 inches, or move it over here, move over there, until in my ears I have what's right. Yeah. Most of the time, when the artist comes in and hears it, he doesn't realize how much thought is going into the sound, the frequency response. They'll usually just say, oh, drums sound great, or oh, guitar sounds great. But they're just thinking of that individual sound.
You can hear all the individual notes a lot more. But this
And I'm thinking of the overall, you know, it's like the way a conductor reads a chart, you know, he's reading it up and down, the musicians are reading their own things back and forth, but I'm trying to look at the whole picture.
Yeah. For that stuff, that's way better.
The things you have to do, you have to run, you have to go, you read, the fly, bada beat, bada boom.
The whole concept of emotion from sound is it's just hard to comprehend. It just triggers something. I mean, something in your head goes, oh, wow. You know, it just makes me think of a song like this or a mood like this. And then you could change it and go in a completely different direction. It's all just emotions. And the musician is what can bring that out of the instrument and then put into a recording so that everybody can hear it.
Everything's sort of a story. I love stories, and I love people telling me stories. And music tells me a story in a way that words can't. And I think that's why I got into films, because films to me in a funny way are like a song. it's this weird structure where, you know, it's not like a book, you know, it's a short form version of something anyway, so it's much more like a song. And I create movies very, very much to music.
To me, it's always just seemed like this magical thing that was like, I don't know where that came from, and that's always why I wanted to pursue it, just because it was like really intriguing. So I think that we have the ability to create this thing that moves other people so much and communicates ideas that we're totally unable to articulate through verbal or you know, any other kind of communication. I think it's really, really this important way to transfer emotional ideas to other people.
Music has this invisible power to affect how people are feeling as this story unfolds. The idea is to kind of overcome the illusion that it's recorded, but that it's something that's alive, that's coming to you from all around you. So I think the more that you can kind of embrace your audience with the sound, the more they feel the story is part of them, that they're immersed in it.
Being a musician, you know, going through the roller coaster of emotion, being part of creating emotion, being part of this wordless communication, which is incredibly deep and personal and meaningful. And whenever your parents say, no, you should become a doctor or something like this, yeah, they might be right. You know, it might be more important or whatever, but is it going to be a life as well lived? You know, a life full of passion and full of those sort of things.
I think I found the music in me, in my soul. And I think my fingers or my hands follow that instinct. And there is definitely a relationship with the instrument. So the instrument comes back to you. And you know, the sound of an instrument can be very inspiring. I think that's what I found also when I play an instrument that is a new instrument for me. There's something physical about digging in those strings, you know, that makes it special. I mean, something special about this guy. This is a very, very special and dear instrument to me, you know, it's the ronroco. Just the tuning of the instrument is so peculiar. Just, the instrument can tell you so many things with just one finger. You don't need to press so many, you know. Just with, you know, 3 notes. But I find very rewarding expressing myself with very little, you know. It's part of, I guess, of who I am. I was very interested in just in the title of The Art of Listening, because I'm a true believer in that listening really altered the artistic experience. I think the work of art gets defined by the audience. It's observant, you know, but everybody adds to it in the process of listening. The sound of an instrument is something very inspiring. So going to the instrument with whatever feelings are coming out of yourself and then seeing what is coming out from that instrument, which, you know, it's nothing really that you can control. I mean, there's a certain amount of knowledge that you can have, but the moment of inspiration is something really that is that moment in which you kind of lose control, and there's something beyond you that is doing the movements, and you're kind of like discovering yourself. Moment that I get in contact with the instrument, that I connect with the instrument, and that from that comes, you know, the music, it creates its own geography. It creates its own space. We have a say in Spanish, you know, that says, pinta tu aldea y pintarás el mundo. You know, paint your little village and you will be painting the world. Sorry, I got carried away. Having played this, and I've been rehearsing a whole bunch of other stuff, and I haven't played this in a while.
Most people who make music believe in the following, that it will sound, that the better the production, the better it will sound. Most people believe that. I know that seems very simple, okay? And why do we have to reinforce that? Well, because the next sentence is, oh my gosh, 90% of the people are listening to it on these crappy earbuds. So why bother to spend any time making the production really good? The fact is that better produced records actually sound better even on earbuds. They just do. They always have. It does actually translate.
When you go into the studio to record, there's a, it's a decision-making process, like anything else. If you're writing a book, you have to choose which words to use. If you're making a painting, you have to pick the colors. When you're making a record, you have to pick, how does the chorus go? Is that a good solo? Or we're gonna, what's the song gonna sound like? And I think the advantages with the tape machine, for me, is it sounds a little better, not a big one. You're not looking at anything. You're doing it by sound. Even when you do splices, you're rocking and listening. You're not, you're not using your eyes. And the biggest one is the permanence of it.
The people who make the music are not letting up on the production. The debate over style, whether it should be in the box, not in the box, start tracking analog, switching over to digital, stay in digital from the beginning. I find these debates actually, and I guess me personally, I'll say it, I find them a little on the boring side. This is taste.
I tend to ask myself, I'm a logical person. I say, why are you doing this? Why are we making a record? What is it supposed to accomplish? I'm not just gonna start turning this knob because somebody in a magazine turned this knob. I wanna know why I'm turning this knob. That's just how my head is, So when I say, why are we making a record? It's like, it's supposed to make you feel something. When we're working on music together, it's like, we're just trying to figure out what feels great, and it doesn't have to be analog or digital or simple. It doesn't have to be live. It could be anything. If it's computer music, that's what feels good to you, great, that's fine, But to me, having these particular people in the universe, in the same room, on the same rhythm, to be where we are and to have this house and to have everything clicking the way we are and be able to record the records exactly the way we want them, it's unbelievable. But my feeling of freedom with that and my feeling of power and of love, with that, is, I think, unfortunately, counterbalanced by my feeling of helplessness and frustration of what happens to the music when it gets out the door.
The problem that every musician faces is, how much do you want to have your vision diluted, or how much do you want your music diluted? When you're starting out, it's a very personal conversation. You're writing for yourself, but at the same time, you're writing for somebody else. Because music only really exists if there's a listener. So you need your audience. You want your audience. You want to play your music for somebody else.
There's a really interesting thing with music. If you put a lot of care in it, you can put a lot of layers of things in songs. And people don't get those layers out unless they're willing to commit to sitting down, listening to it on good speakers or really good headphones. Because some of these works, there's just so much energy put into them. And you benefit so much from works that have had a high degree of craftsmanship, attention, passion. And it's a really interesting thing to be aware of, though, because as a listener, if you start thinking about those things, it kind of can help dictate your choices.
I encourage people to sit down and listen to the whole album. When I create albums, they're a whole piece. They're made as one listening experience. They're very structured, they're very intentional in the way that they proceed from one piece to another. I definitely think that the experience of just sitting and listening, having a 45-minute chunk of time to just be at peace, not worry about anything else, and just get into the sound, you know, I personally love that myself, and so I want to share that experience with others. And so that's when I'm creating an album, that's the whole piece, that's the whole package.
The ephemeral nature of music is part of what makes it so incredible and precious. It's a little moment in time and a place. That's what records are all about. You can revisit those places, and every single LP represents kind of a life's work for an artist, and it's a distillation of everything that person was all about. And most people don't leave a legacy on earth like that.
To a certain extent, this is my reward. This is my trophy room. I can walk up to this wall of records and I'll pull out anything random, and it will open up a flood of memories of times that I've played that record, interactions that I've had around that record. Music has always had a gravitational pull that I haven't fully been able to understand or explain, and I haven't really needed to. You know, it's a calling. You know, there is no questioning that. Who knows, you know, why we create art and we make it a priority, but it's a really important function for us as human beings. And any of the creative people, the links in the chain, we're all striving for it to be presented in the best way possible.
These are pieces of art, if you want to call it that, and artists and musicians and producers and engineers, we literally spend our whole lives trying to make this stuff as best as we can, and we want the experience to go so deep that it just threatens to overtake your normal consciousness. And I don't think you can get that experience necessarily on the subway with a lot of background noise on hyper-compressed files. You can, but we're trying so much harder than that.
I sometimes imagine that my sound system is emitting a sound wave, and that everybody is kind of jacking into that, is connecting to that sound wave, and we're all on that same wavelength. And when you do have a big sound system that you're playing on, and you feel that connection from a large group of people, it is so powerful.
Music is designed to be a real experience, which means in the flesh, right in front of you. You know, the recorded medium is like a photograph. It's like, if you can't be there cool, here's a photograph. Every decade, every few years, every generation, these new things happen that kind of educate our ears and kind of how we subliminally digest music in different ways.
For people who want to connect directly with the artist, the more you give them, the better chance they have of connecting to the actual performance. And the more compressed the audio gets, the less of that intimacy is left in the audio itself.
There wasn't that distraction ever before, where you would sit and listen to a record instead of like listen to a record and check your email and check the news and like watch Hulu. Like, it's like there wasn't a carnival in your fucking living room of streaming services all on different devices and then a vinyl record playing in the corner. There was just a vinyl record playing in the corner. And that was pretty much it.
I don't think that everybody needs to be an audiophile, but that there needs to be some minimum level of quality to hear what those musicians work so hard to achieve. People, you know, are in studio working on a record for 2 months or something, agonizing over the tiniest details of the mix and making something as good as it can be. And if you're listening to it in a 90 dB and, you know, worth of noise on a bus, you're gonna miss a lot of that stuff.
木からギターを作って、それが演奏して
なんだっけレコーディングしてそのプロダクト流してものすごく素晴らしいストーリーだと思います。で僕らもその会社の中でプロダクションという仕事を行っているんだけど、さっきのモチベーションの話をするとやっぱり僕らある意味じゃクラフトマンシップみたいなところをこだわって、多分一般のお客さんにもわからない部分をすごくこだわっていかにハイクオリティにしましょうかってことを毎回やっぱり
サウンドのエンジニアとかクリエイターですね、マスタリングエンジニアとかがどういったその音を作りたいかっていう、彼らがやっぱり作ったものをそれを聞いた時に、彼らがその作り上げたその音がどれだけ忠実に再現できるかっていうところがやっぱり一つこの音をその再生するこういう商品を作っている上では非常に重要だと思っていて、なので高音質ないいものを作るだけではやはりダメで、アーティストが演奏して歌ってそれをレコーディングしたものをそのまま聴けるというところをこう一つの流れの中でですね作り上げるとものすごいこういい商品ができるなと思うんで、そういう人たちとのそのコミュニケーションが非常にこう大事だと思ってますし、最近そういうことが非常にできるようになってきたのが非常にこう商品を作ってて非常にこう嬉しいことです。
Technology in a lot of ways has progressed to the point where the consumer listening experience could be the best it's ever been if you put in some effort. And we're just getting to the point where the infrastructure for the internet can handle good sounding audio. So we're right at the beginning of when we start talking about what stuff should sound like. Up until now, it's been what can it handle? That's what you get.
The tools for audio production have been democratized. If you can democratize the distribution system, the promotion system as well, and make it so that an artist can give their fans whatever it is they want. If I as a fan really love an artist, what I want to do is support them in whatever it is they want to make, and I just want to get more great music from them in whatever shape that takes. And so when somebody puts their music on Bandcamp, I feel like they've just handed me something really important, and I've got to get that, I've got to present that in the best possible way. I've got to actually deliver that to the fan in the highest quality that's possible, and to do anything less than that, I think would be just irresponsible.
The dream is that discovery triggers an engagement from the listener. So the potential to actually convert someone, if you will, into an active fan of someone is unprecedented now. We're racing towards an infrastructure that will allow us to deliver lossless audio. And I think that technology is actually moving in the direction of making the consumption of great sounding music a reality for everyone.
Good is the enemy of great. You're tempted to accept good. And when I listen to music, the better the quality that I'm hearing, the more emotional it becomes for me. And if you ain't got emotion, what's the point? Again, what is the point?
A lot of the boundaries that we see in our life are drawn by ourselves, Like demand better quality. Find out what the record's supposed to sound like when they mastered it. When the band was in the studio and they finally got the mix right, and everybody's banging their heads and smiling. They felt like, man, that's the shit, we did it, man. This is the best thing we ever did. Find out what that felt like, man.
The whole point of music is the tone of the instrument, the poetry, whether it's a Stradivarius or a beautiful tone of Dexter Gordon playing the saxophone or a guy spending hours getting the right tubes on his sound. That's what we want to capture. And in an MP3 world, when you compress that down, you lose all the fine detail of that. And if you're really passionate about your music and you want to sit down after a hard day's work in front of a really nice stereo and really hear what an artist has to deliver, that's what high-res files are about.
ハイレゾリューションのまず音源ですね。音源には本来その先ほど言ったプレイするミュージシャンの演奏の小さい微小な音であったりとか、録音した空間の持つ反射の音であったりとか、ものすごいサウンドレベルが低い音とかも含まれていたりします。やはりその空間が持つ音を全部圧縮して圧縮じゃないですね。ちゃんと含んでいる音源がハイレゾリューションの音源です。さらに、プレイヤー、再生機側に求められるものとしてもその音をしっかり再生できるということが一番重要になってきます。
Enjoy yourself, man. Enjoy your music, Enjoy your life. And enjoy the moment of it for what it is, It's not about what you can say that you have. It's not about I can say I have 80,000 songs. It's about, I have one song that makes me feel so fucking good. Makes me feel like 80,000 Men, you know? This is the song you want, and you want it in the biggest, best way possible, you know what I mean? That's what I think people need to do with music. Just get deeper with it. You know, you don't need more, you need better, you need closer. You need to love it more, not love more of it, you know?
Not to like master it or control it. My job is to just discover what it can do.
When a musician picks up the instrument to play it, they may not understand how the guitar goes together, but you can really feel the influence all of these things have. Musicians attend to these things. They're super sensitive, even on only a subconscious level. This shop is my life. I've lived in my shop pretty much all my life. This is a manifestation of all the things that I love, that I believe in. People say that a man doesn't need 8 drill presses, but I would like to imply that a man does need 8 drill presses in order to execute one's dreams. There's a lot of mythology imbued into the notion of the guitar about what wood sounds particularly magical, or what species has more sustain than another. And the bottom line is really that it's the constructional details and the craftsmanship that goes into the making of the instrument. It has a lot more to do with the final outcome, tonally speaking. I start with the geometry as the point of departure on paper, on a blueprint, and you have to work out everything in advance in that regard. These are hand-stitched rasps from Logier in France. Each one's a work of art in itself. The first point at which you get a sense of the instrument coming into a kind of a corporal entity is when you bolt the neck onto the body. And that's when you can pick it up. All of a sudden you have something you can balance in your lap. You have something that feels like an instrument. You catch your very first glimpse. You haven't heard it yet, but you get your first notion of what it perhaps will be able to do. One thing I realized about
guys how many in your party? Two. Come on in. You guys are good. How are you?
Cheers.
Anybody who goes to see a small, intimate show with a musician they love comes away loving that artist even more. You feel like you know them in a way and you want to connect with them. And that's the way it is with any art, whether it's writing or sculpture or films or any type of artistic creation like that. The people want to emotionally, personally connect with the person creating the art.
50, 60, 70 years ago, there was no recorded medium of any real quality. In order to hear music, it was a live event. When we had a recorded medium, which means we could record it and distribute it and now listen to it in a non-live situation, we kind of caused a problem. We have a solution and a problem at the same time.
The ability for a listener to actually get into the same room with the musicians is huge, and there is a smaller version of that that comes from listening to their records if you view listening to records in that way and you turn it into an experience.
Stay, go, whatever I do, I just can't get it right. I just can't get it right.
When you go play a show and you've got maybe there's 10 people there and you're just starting out and there's really only 10 human beings at your show. You know, if you can reach one person in that room, that's the goal.
Thank you so much. Oh, you know where to find me. Close your eyes, here I am. Just the way you remember me. The way it was, the way it all began. Is it all lost? Is it all gone? Tell me, baby, where we went wrong.
Lutherie, when I first started studying the discipline, was that there is an end to crafting the instrument, but you're essentially sending it off on a journey and pass perhaps from one person to another and take on a life of its own. That's what we strive for as individual craftspeople. That's kind of the goal.
I'm Dave Smith. We're here in my offices in North Beach in San Francisco. I originally got into this because I had a music background and a technology background. I played in bands, I played bass and guitar in bands when I was going to college. But I also got a degree in electrical engineering and computer science from Cal. So when synthesizers first started coming out in the early 70s, I went out and bought one just because it seemed like, well, music, technology, what a perfect combination for me. In 1978, I designed my first actual synthesizer. It's called the Prophet 5. And it was a very well-known synthesizer at the time. It was kind of a breakthrough instrument because it, for the first time, allowed you to play more than one note at a time on a synthesizer. And for the first time, it allowed you to save your sounds where you could just press a button as opposed to having to change in a whole bunch of knobs. What I've realized since then, since I've been designing instruments for 40 years now, is that the interaction of a musician and an instrument, it should be a musical discovery when you hear something come out of an instrument that you weren't expecting, that you hadn't heard before.
Oftentimes, the sounds are the starting point. A lot of what gets us excited and start writing is organically playing with sound. When we started to think about recorded music in a more serious way, which was after we had already kind of established a language of performance, we just started.
Well, the one thing I hope that people hear when they hear my music is realness. And I think what's important to me now is just forgetting about that and going back to what I hear when I listen to music.
Is it my imagination?
When you go into the studio and you've got all your brand new songs that you want to record to tape, and you come in and you're getting the energy from the person you're working with, you're getting the energy of all the gear and how many people have used a board or where you got your guitar from. So you're getting all of that, and it's such a hippie thing, but if energy affects everything, then of course you're getting that from all different angles of everything that you're working with.
When I see you again, in this dream I keep waking up in.
You want to get one more? Just so we have it?
Yeah, let's do it.
Why not?
Hi, I'm Kaki King. We are in Brooklyn, New York, in a theater called Standard Toycraft. So, this guitar is called a Griffin, and it was made by a man in Woodstock, New York named Joe Vayette. And the fact is that Joe and I have a relationship through the instrument. He has the planning and the engineering and the ingenuity to build something like this. You know, the magic of what's happening, especially in an acoustic guitar, is actually all happening underneath this top. So there's a bracing pattern that's unique to every manufacturer. And Joe's is, well, unique to him. When I started to play these guitars, I realized they were writing songs almost on their own. I was just going where the guitar was leading me. Anything that I've written on this guitar couldn't have been written on any other instrument. Not even in a similar song, but just played in a different tuning or in a different style. I mean, there's a quality to this guitar that is so unique to it. And my job is